Okay, so every morning, even to this day, I would get to work very early, way before I'm supposed to be at work. So I was probably at my desk around 7:30, 7:30. My office was in the American Express building, which was known as the Three World Financial Center then.
It was an ordinary day in the Pentagon. I was working there as I had done for 16 years beforehand. I was a Navy civilian, so not in uniform, but working as a civilian. As you may know, there are more civilians than uniformed people working in the Pentagon.
I was in the office about 45 minutes when I felt a huge crash and a huge impact, and the building started to shake. And we had no idea what it was, because back in 2001 in America, when something happened, you didn't assume it was terrorism.
I was on the northeast corner of the building. So if I would have looked up, I probably would have seen the plane coming, but I wasn't. I was focused on my computer, and I heard and I felt the plane hit the building, but I didn't know what it was. And honestly, it didn't really matter because there's something always going on in the city.
I felt the impact, and there was no direction. So there was no one there to say, hey, you should leave or go down the stairs. There was no alarm or sound. It was just a bunch of people in an office feeling this crazy, movement and not knowing what to do. So we decided ourselves to head towards the stairs and start going down 29 flights of stairs.
I felt like a vibration, not in my desk or my chair, not like an earthquake. It was inside me, like when bass in a music is on, like you feel it. Black smoke coming out, flames, and I thought, oh my God, the World Trade Center. So, some people are dead across the street.
Cuando lo bajamos del bus estaba una cuadra antes que las torres. Cuando yo miré para arriba vi que la primera torre tenía el hoyo grande, o mucho humo, y vi que la esquina de la segunda torre estuvo en fuego, pero yo pensé que el primer avión pegó y algo le pegó a la otra torre, eso porque estaba en fuego, pero nosotros no supimos en viaje del terminal de buses al World Trade Center, el segundo avión atacó. Entonces nosotros no supimos eso, estamos pensando que nada más un avión pegó.
Well, when I was about halfway down the stairs, so maybe the 15th floor, I started on 29, I saw firemen coming up the stairs past me with all of their gear, their tanks, their uniforms. And I asked one of them, what hit the building? What happened? And he looked at me and he looked very serious and he said, a jet plane hit the building.
So when my sister called me back and said, 2 World Trade just got hit by another plane, I said, it's not 2 World Trade, it's 1 World Trade, right? So 1 is the North Tower and 2 is the South Tower. We didn't call it that back then. It was just 1 and 2. And she said, you need to leave. You need to leave your building. And I said, I'm not going outside. Like, I need to leave the building. Why? I still don't know terrorists. She never said terrorist. She never raised her voice. She never gave me any idea that she knew exactly what was going on, but she did.
When I got to the lobby, when I finished going down all those stairs, when we opened the door and got into the lobby, people were screaming, it's terrorism, we're being attacked. Everything in the lobby was smashed, glass, marble. People were injured, people were screaming. And when they said terrorism and attack, we still didn't know that it was a jet plane. We didn't know that there were 4 planes all together. Didn't know that piece until later on.
But I saw a man in a suit with his tie like pulled to down, and financial business, you're like all the time, you know. And he had a bandage around his head, and I don't know if there was blood on his face or not, or blood on the bandage. But I remember seeing him thinking, well, where did he come from, and why is he like that?
We were told in the lobby where to go, like which door to go out of. And they told us to cover our heads when we went outside and kind of do this and not to look up. And they kept saying it, do not look up, do not look up. So it made us wonder, what are we not looking at? So of course we all looked up and we saw both towers covered in flames, and we heard the sounds and we saw people jumping out of the building, which even 20 years later, there is nothing I can even say to describe what that's like.
Therefore, when the Pentagon was struck, I quickly sensed what had happened, that the building had been attacked in some way, because the building shuddered. There was a very loud sound, and papers began to float down from the sky, and black smoke rose into it. And through windows, I could see these things in the sky. So I evacuated together with many colleagues almost immediately, but it was so chaotic, it was impossible to know whether my people were okay. There was no way to trace them. And after 10 or 15 minutes in the center court, some casualties began to emerge from the building. But I have no medical training, so there were others who did have such training. And I did not approach those who had casualties, but some of colleagues of mine did. But I knew something terrible had happened because of the evidence, smoke rising in the sky, and the building shuddered. The Pentagon is built of concrete, so it shuddered like an earthquake. And the sound and the shudder told me that something big had happened.
And we came down into the street again, and everything you couldn't see. As the tower was going down, it was like a snowstorm, like a blizzard. Okay. And then people were screaming, the tower is going down. And then we had to escape. We couldn't see.
Pude ver las luces estaban moviéndose. Vi como algo como tierra. Ahora lo que sé es que era el edificio cayéndose. A ese momento algo me recogió a mí y me tiró en mi espalda, y había mucho concreto cayéndose sobre nosotros. A ese momento, como policía, la primera cosa que nosotros hacemos cuando estamos en problemas es ir para mi radio. Entonces cogí mi radio y empecé a gritar, por favor, ayúdenos, 813, que es nuestro dicho para decir que todo mundo, por favor, todo mundo venga a ayudarlos. Y algo me pegó la mano y perdí mi radio. A ese momento me cogí mi casco, lo estaba aguantando, y algo me pegó el casco y me lo quitó completamente. Entonces yo nada más me cubrí y esperé, pero se sentía y se oía como eran 1 millón de trenes cayéndose sobre nosotros y mucho concreto.
So I'm running through the streets, I can't see, I don't know where the water is. And Then I was having problems breathing from all of the debris in the air. I have asthma. So I asked out into the crowd, I said, does anyone have an inhaler for asthma? And a complete stranger just threw one at me. I took a couple of puffs. I gave it back. A man took off his tie and gave it to me to help me, so I would have something to cover my mouth. I finally, somehow, by God, got to the water, but now the other tower came down. So we just laid on the ground, face down, and just hoped that we would survive all of this debris coming down. And then ultimately, boats did come, ferry boats and different types of boats. There was no dock. We were just lifted by other passengers over the rail into these boats. And ultimately, I was rescued by boat.
Cuando otra vez oímos ¡boom! El mismo ruido como el primero, y era la segunda torre cayéndose. Y a ese momento, cuando estaba cayendo esa torre, ya sabía, yo para mí iba a morir. Entonces lo que hice yo, para la gente que no oye, esto es, te amo, I love you, tú sabes, te amo. Entonces cogí los dos brazos, me los crucé así porque pensé yo que si iba a morirme, si me encuentran así, mi esposa iba a saber que yo estaba pensando de ella en los últimos momentos de mi vida.
And I walked to the point where I had to meet my sister with a purpose. I was very relieved to see her because there were hundreds and hundreds of people in the street.
And the next day, I found out my friend was missing, my close friend, and I called his family, and I found out that he stayed in the building on purpose because his friend was in a wheelchair, and he didn't want to leave him, and they waited for the firemen. And my friend Abe and Ed waited and waited. The firemen came, they called their families and said, you know, great news, we're on the way out, but it was too late, and the building went down.
Y a ese momento empezamos a luchar para nuestra vida hasta las 8 de la noche esa noche, que oí en la distancia gente gritando United States Marine Corps, can you hear us? Yell or tap. Eran marineros que eran de la reserva, que entraron a una parte muy peligrosa con un civil, eran 3 personas, los encontraron. A ese momento llamaron al departamento de Nueva York, la policía ahí, que se le llama NYPD ESU Truck 1, que son los equipos de SWAT. Y 3 hombres, Scott Strauss, Patty McGee, que eran policías de Nueva York, y un civil, que era paramédico, entraron en este hoyo y empezaron a sacarme. Eran 3 horas peligrosas donde había fuego viniendo y hasta le dijeron a ellos, tienen que dejarlo. Y ellos dijeron, no vamos a dejar a estos hombres porque si se mueren ellos, nosotros los morimos con ellos.